work-life balance.
Thanks, Martin. You've made that point.
The oozing concern that Fine Gael have shown for rural Ireland all of a sudden is quite startling. What are we, 3 years now in this particular term of the Dáil? And since I've gone in there, I've been constantly getting on my feet defending the rural post office network. Please don't close it. It's more than just a building. It's a social fabric. It's a necessary place for people to congregate, to have access to their accounts, etc., etc. Garda stations that were closed during the austerity years have not been reopened. We heard a litany of the towns without Garda stations on Morning Ireland the other day. They cut bus services on the basis of saving money to many outlying areas. They haven't extended the railway corridor in the west. And all of a sudden, the most important thing is to be connected. And you know what? I was at a briefing yesterday with the department on broadband, and one of the reasons that they were saying we strongly need this is so that people in rural Ireland can get medical care over the internet. And it sort of gelled with me because not so long ago I heard the Junior Minister for Mental Health say that psychiatry in the future will be done over the internet. That if you're feeling depressed, lonely, sad, suicidal, you'll talk to somebody on the internet. Where are they going? They're driving rural Ireland into isolation, into depression, into the inability to access social services. They're destroying towns and villages. And now they're saying, get connected and you'll be all right at the cost of 3 billion. I mean, give us a break. If they were to concern themselves about equality, going back to the previous topic, in the way that they should, 3 billion could drag all those children out of poverty in the morning that we just talked about earlier on and keep them out of poverty. It's outrageous what they're doing. And it's all to get votes. It's a spin, more Leo spin for election. If not this election, it'll be for the general election that's soon to follow.
All right, I'll give Martin a chance to respond to that, and then I'd like to come to
the report itself.
The report and the cross-party consensus that this is something that needs to be tackled.
Yes, absolutely. But, you know, the proof is in the pudding, and the action is always what matters. The thing I think that has to headline in this is homelessness and the impact that homelessness has on children. I have a friend who's doing a PhD, and his study is on the long-term psychological impact on children of living in homeless accommodation. And he's horrified already at some of the results that he's getting. And I dread to think what it's going to be like for these young people, even after they get a home, and trying to deal with what has to be almost like a terror of living in hotel accommodation, not being able to have sleepovers, not being able to have your pals around, fighting with your sisters and brothers all the time for up to 2 years and more. And that, I think, has to be the headline issue. Now, I've listened to the two establishment party representatives here say that it's more general and every department and all the rest of it. Could you just pick one issue that we could deal with and deal with fundamentally and change, that it is possible to deal with, and that is homelessness among children. 10,000 people on the housing list, 4,000 children, but also their families, their parents, their wider families, etc. And it is possible to sort that out. And that is possible by getting rid of the idea that housing has to be about making profits for REITs or for vulture funds or for individual landlords. Housing should be a right. It should be delivered through the public system on public land. There's all sorts of forms of housing. There's affordable, there's cost rental, there's social, there's all sorts of forms, but it should be delivered through the public sector on public land for the public good. And we could start now by acknowledging that that is something we should do. Instead of that, every means we have tried to take into the Dáil, either to stop children being evicted into homelessness or to insist that public housing is built on public land, Fianna Fáil have either abstained or voted against it. Obviously, the government vote against us all the time. And with that sort of carry on, we're never, ever going to change it. More than a third of all TDs between the two parties are landlords. You have no real interest in it.
We're absolutely committed to
on this. We've already spent 18 million on the tendering process. Every day they're producing fancy documents like this, websites, presentations, spin. That all costs money.
I agree with
and
you.
there's dozens of people in the department working on it, in the Department of Communications, Climate Action and the Environment, instead of working on climate action.
You're very quiet there, Martin.
I've said already, And I would
chance that everybody in the country won't buy into it, that they won't necessarily want it. Because they haven't actually done, the department hasn't actually done its own study to see who would want this. They're relying on sort of statistics from other studies. And Robert Watt points out in his reply to them that you'd probably end up with about a 25% uptake.
All right, I have to take a break, but just
With
a
100%
number of your texts and tweets to 51551.
The care of our children's health,
and I think
that the new National Children's Hospital is dedicating a private unit there with public money.
And it's against
that
logic.
a two-tier health service does not serve
we shouldn't
the
have
poorest.
We shouldn't have a private facility, and it's totally
Sorry, Jack, I didn't interrupt you. I'm just trying to make the point, the health point, that children are being discriminated against again because the new National Children's Hospital, which is a whole other night's conversation, has a unit dedicated to private care that private consultants will gain from with public money. I mean, where is the commitment to children, to equality, coming from the Taoiseach? He's committed to his own class, the people who have earned the most money, who make the most money and who pay the least taxes.
The commitment to eliminating child poverty. The last budget, 25,000 children were removed